Hello and welcome. This is Cheryl. Thank you so much for joining me today. In this video, I'm sharing the 13 Days of Craftoween box. We're going to do day 4. So we're going to open up the little folder from day 4 and create something with the die set that is inside. So I have all of the videos that I'm doing with this series in a playlist. So if you haven't seen days 1 through 3 or the introduction, they are all in the same playlist to make it easy to find. So today we have this adorable little ghost die with a banner holding some pizza, and there is an appropriate sentiment in the coordinating stamp set that comes in the 13 Days of Craftoween. Off screen, I did a bunch of die cutting, but I wanted to share one of the things that I like to do when I'm doing ghosts. I always love it when they're a little bit transparent. You don't have to do this. You could do regular cardstock if you want, but I find it just makes it look a little bit more interesting. And again, something just I like to do. So I like to use vellum because of its transparency, but there's not really any good vellum adhesive. So what I like to do is take a little piece of vellum and I put some score tape on the back, and I have it in sheets. It comes on rolls and it comes in a ton of different sizes and widths. So if you like to do different techniques with glitter on the front of a card, using it on the roll in like the 4.5 inch width is fantastic. So I put it on the vellum and then it die cuts just like butter. Now, if you want to use regular cardstock, there is an additional die for this ghost to create the back part for inside those slits at the bottom. But if I were to do that out of vellum, you'd see the line from it. So I'm completely eliminating it and it still looks totally fine. So I did one of those ghosts with my blade from the die facing the vellum, and then the other one faced the tape backing. And that way I have 2 different ghosts that face different ways. I want to have 2 ghosts here holding the banner in between them. And to make them face different ways, you have to use the opposite side of the cardstock, or in this case, the adhesive backed side of the vellum. So for my little banner, I have the back part of it die cut out of some Raven cardstock. The boo part of the banner is die cut out of some carrot cardstock. And I have the same 2 colors for the little pumpkins. And then there's also a little slice of pizza for the ghosts to hold. I did multiples of the pumpkins and I did 2 of the little slices of pizza. So I already have one of them assembled already, ready to go, and a couple of the pumpkins are already ready to go. And then there's also an adorable little cat that lies down. You definitely don't need to use all of these pieces on your cards. I just thought they were all cute, and I wasn't sure, obviously, because I haven't opened up any of the other folders for the future days. I wasn't sure if there was any future days where those pieces could be used, so I wanted to utilize them in today's card. I'm using some Barely Art glue and a fine tip bottle to glue all of my pieces together. Liquid glue goes a long way, and with having it in a fine tip bottle means you can use as little or as much as you want. So I use it for gluing my layers to my cards as well as gluing teeny tiny little die cuts. I also have a large acrylic block here that I like to put my die cuts underneath while they're drying. It saves having to hold them while that glue sets, and it really doesn't take long. I want to say like 5-10 seconds. But it's 5-10 seconds that I don't want to stand there holding a die cut. So I always put it underneath my acrylic block so that that will hold it down nice and flat, make sure that the glue has good contact. And I can also see through that acrylic block. So if by chance something shifts while I put it under the block, I can see that right away and correct that. So once I have all of my pieces done and ready to go, I set them to the side. I have a piece of hammer mill cardstock here that I'm going to use for my background. It's trimmed to 4 inches by 5.25 inches. And I'm just going to do a little bit of light ink blending. I want it to look a little bit kind of ghosty, foggy, misty. So I'm going to use some Hickory Smoke Distress ink. I have a nice large Spellbinders ink blending brush. This way I can control how much ink I put down. I like using the Spellbinders ones for background because you can get a really light coating of the ink, or you can get a little bit heavier by pressing a little bit harder, going again with another coat of ink. So I'm just putting a little bit on the back, and you can see that I'm making sure that it's nice and blotchy. Again, I want to create kind of a foggy, misty background. It does not need to be completely even. If you want a completely even background, solid cardstock is your best friend. I want it to look a little bit more visually interesting. And I'm also going to put some Villainous potion ink on this background. So I want to have lights and dark areas, as well as some areas that I can put that Villainous potion ink on there and blend it into that Hickory Smoke. So I'm going to do the same motion with the large ink blending brush for the Villainous potion, making sure some areas are lighter, some areas are darker. I've mentioned it many times in my videos. I just think it looks a little bit more interesting if there are some areas that are lighter and darker, but it's personal preference. For my mat for this, I have a piece of carrot cardstock that is trimmed to 4 1/8 by 5 3/8, and I'm gluing that to my A2 card base. So again, I'm using that same Barely Art glue, and I put my acrylic block on the different layers as they're drying. Didn't do it for this one because I'm going to put this second layer down right away. But again, it helps everything stay nice and flat and I can see right through it. So once I put it on this layer here, I can arrange my little die cuts and see exactly how they're going to look on my background. That way I know if the idea that I have in my head is going to work or if I need to change it up a little bit. It just makes it really, really easy. The other thing too is if you have a ton of different die cuts and you don't want to forget exactly where you put them, when you lift up that block and move it over, they're in the same spot, so you have your arrangement all figured out. Before I add my die cuts, I want to stamp my sentiment. And this sentiment, I can't remember exactly what it says, but it says something about pizza. So it coordinates with the fact that these ghosts are going to be carrying pizza, which I thought was a really creative, interesting thing to do because you definitely don't usually associate ghosts with pizza. So I've got my Misti stamping tool here. I have my card base in the Misti stamping tool, and I am stamping it with some carved pumpkin distress ink to coordinate with the oranges in the different die cuts as well as my frame. Now that part could have been done before adding my mats to my card background, but at that part I was trying to decide whether I wanted to put it on the card front or whether I wanted to put it inside, and ended up deciding on the front of the card. So before I glue anything down, I'm going to arrange my little ghosts holding the banner. I want to make sure that they are the right amount apart. Once I've figured it out, I can take that tape backing from that score tape off of the ghosts and then glue them right to that background of the card. That tape is really, really strong. So once you've glued it down, the only way to get it up is to rip things apart. So you definitely want to make sure that you know exactly where you want them to go before you glue them down. Otherwise, you have to start over. This tape is so strong that I used to work at a scrapbook store, and we had someone that said that she put up molding in her house with it because she got tired of asking her husband to do it. And I also had another gentleman that came in and told me, and we already knew how good the tape was, that they had to sell an area rug with their house because it was just easier than taking the rug up, because they'd use the tape to make sure the rug wasn't rolling up for people to trip on. So it is really, really strong tape. So you definitely want to make sure that you know exactly where you're going to be putting things before you put them down. So once I have those ghosts in place, I can glue the rest of the little die cuts in place. For those, I'm using that same Barely Art glue in the fine line bottle. I put my ghosts on first, then did the banner, and then the little pumpkins and the pumpkin and the cat in the corners. At one point, I was going to do the 3 pumpkins in one spot and then just the cat in the other, but it looked better with having one pumpkin with the cat with that little pop of orange in that other corner as well. It looked a little bit lopsided when all the 3 pumpkins were just on one side. So I'm making sure that they're a little bit staggered. So again, it looks a little bit more interesting, one pumpkin in front of the other. And then same with the pumpkin and the cat. I have the cat laying in front of the other one and have that pumpkin a little bit behind them. So after those are glued down, we can glue down the little pizza slices. Now I could have done the same technique with that I did with the ghosts, to have them facing opposite ways to make sure my pizza was facing opposite ways, but I didn't think it was that important. I thought it was more important to have the ghost facing opposite ways. But if having the pizza facing the same way for both of them is something that bothers you, you just want to flip your die cuts over before gluing them together, and that will fix it. So here is the final card. Again, a very simple card. I love the fact that these dies you can create a whole card with what is in each day's collection. Just add a little bit of different cardstock and different ink. Thank you so much for joining me for day 4 of the 13 days of Craftoween. I really appreciate all the time that you spend with me. I will be back again tomorrow and share day 5 with you.